بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير. Lesson number 27, book 2, and one of the most important lessons, alhamdulillah, and hopefully it's gonna be easier, inshallah. We don't need to worry about it. Okay, two things before we start learning anything, especially learning Arabic or Quran. So there are two things that we have to make sure. Number one, we have to make sure that we are learning it only liwajhillahi ta'ala, to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not just to see the, like, to show off, like, I know Arabic, and just to show off. And number two, always we have to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like every time we start with the dua, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us and make it easy for us. Because there is no la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, there is no power that can help us to make things easier for us except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, we have to put some effort, but the ultimate source and the ultimate power is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so what do you see on the screen today? Something that we started with, if you remember. This is where we started, or we began from the basic verbs, and we learned that for the basic form of the verb, which is 3 root letters, which is called al-thulathi al-mujarrad, the verbs that consist of 3 letters. So these verbs have 6 abwab. How many? 6 abwab. Al-bab, what are the meaning of the bab?
Gate.
It means a door. Yeah, bawaba is gate and bab is door. Okay. And then we have the plural of bab is abwab. That means doors, right? So why it is named as bab? It is named because it helps us to enter the world of the verbs, which is like really amazing and beautiful, a world which is full of like surprises and also a variety as well. So we have al-bab, and if you remember, we have covered 4 so far because the Sheikh has covered 4 in the book. So we are following the books as well, and there are 2 left. We had a brief introduction of hasiba yahsibu, waritha yarithu, and there is one more that we need to cover as well, which is karuma yakrumu. So inshallah, whenever we come across in the books, we will cover that as well. But as of now, we need to focus on the ones that we have already learned. So we have learned nasara yansuru, and noon means that in the dictionary, when you will have a look, it will only be written over there, noon. For example, you will see nasara, and you will see there over qatala or any other verb like that. And next to that, you will find noon. That means it is from bab nasara yansuru. And we have masdar, nasran, and fi'l al-amr, unsur, and fi'l al-nahi, la tansur. Okay, what is special about this bab? Number one, this is the most commonly used in Arabic language. And number 2, in the verb forms, and the thulathi mujarrad, or the verbs that have 3 root letters, this is the only form of the verb. When we make fi'l al-amr, we make fi'l al-amr with dhamma, as you can see here. So this is the only verb form where we make fi'l al-amr, we make it with dhamma, right? So now we know 2 things about it. Number 1, that it's the most commonly used, and number 2, fi'l al-amr always starts with dhamma for this verb. So unsur and fi'l al-nahi is la tansur. What will be ism al-fa'il? Do you remember ism al-fa'il?
Nasirun.
Nasirun. And ism al-maf'ul?
Mansurun.
Mansurun. Excellent. So we have covered these things, and inshallah, I expect that you know all of them now. Nasara yansuru nasran, and fi'l al-amr is unsur, fi'l al-nahi is la tansur, and ism al-fa'il is nasirun, wa ism al-maf'ul is mansurun. Then the second one is daraba yadribu. So here, as we can see here, the second root letter has dhamma, yansuru, whereas daraba yadribu, the second root letter has kasra. It is yadribu. We remember, or we should remember, that ya is not part of the root letters, right? It is alamat al-mudari. So when we say the second root letter, that means noon is the first, sad is the second, and ra is the third. And to confirm this, we can have a look at the past tense, and we will see that it has only three root letters, na, sa, ra. Similarly, we have daraba, yadribu. So here the second root letter has kasra, and al-masdar is darban, fi'l al-amr is idrib, fi'l al-nahi is la tadrib, ism al-fa'il will be daribun, wa ism al-maf'ul will be madrubun, right? Then we have learned samia, yasma'u, that means to hear, sam'an, hearing, isma', listen, la tasma', don't listen, sami'un wa masmu'un. And then we have learned fataha, yaftahu, fathan, iftah, la taftah, fatihun, and maftuhun. When we say fatihun, you should also try to practice saying, for example, nasirun wa nasiratun, similarly daribun wa daribatun, sami'un wa sami'atun, fatihun wa fatihatun, so that we know that both, we know the masculine form and the feminine form of ismul fa'il and ismul maf'ul. Okay, so this is just the review of what we have learned and we have been discussing for more than 2-3 months now. If you can memorize in this pattern or in this form, like Nasara, Daraba, Sami'a, Fataha, it will be ideal. If not, that's okay, because there is a reason why they have been put in this order. And then we have 2 more, inshallah, that we will follow up in the next lessons. All right, today, inshallah, we are talking about weak verbs, al-mu'tallu, and weak verbs. What do you remember about the weak verbs?
They have waw and ya as a root letter.
Excellent. They have waw or ya as one of the root letters. There can be 2 of them as well, but as of now, we are focusing on one of the root letters are called weak verbs or mu'tallun. Okay, now then what happens to change one weak letter to another or to delete it is called ta'lil. So the word ta'lil, you might have heard about it as well. So I just want to give you a complete picture of what it is. So the name is mu'tallun, and when the change has taken place, then the verb is called ta'lil, yani change has taken place. So today, inshallah, we are going to learn like qawala is changed to qala. And today we will see like why it has changed to qala. However, we know that yawidu is changed to yaidu. We know this already. Do you remember why it has become yaidu? Fatha and kasra. Okay. Now, but my question is why it has changed to yes, sister. I can't hear anything. So yeah, I do, because it's we know that we know mithal. In mithal, the waw gets dropped in the mudari form, so it will be always wajada yajidu, wa'ada ya'idu, and most of them they come on the pattern of daraba yadribu. So what happens that the waw that we have over here, ya'idu, this waw gets dropped and it becomes ya'idu. And we have discussed about this several times. Okay, now we have here basically fa, ain, lam, fa'ala. We know that like fa'ala is the base of all Arabic language. The whole Arabic sarf or tasrif has been based on these 3 root letters, which is fa, ain, and lam. So the first one we have already learned, which is called mu'tallul fa, which is called mithal. Mithal we have already learned. And every weak verb has either waw as one of the weak root letters, or it has ya as one of the weak root letters. For example, mithal, we have wajada yajidu. So this is called mithal wawi. Why we call it mithal wawi? Because it has waw as one of the weak root letters. And then we have mithal ya'i. And why it is called mithal ya'i? Because we have ya as one of the weak root letters. We have discussed about the first one, wajada yajidu. However, we have not discussed about the second one because it is like the least common of the verb forms. So that's why the Sheikh has not discussed it in the book, in this book. Maybe we will find it in book number 2. So what we have covered so far, we have covered mithal wawi, which is wajada yajidu. We have covered this one. Today, inshallah, we are going to talk about mu'tallul ayn. That means the ayn kalima. So fa kalima is mithal and ayn kalima is ajwaf. And it's the reason why it has been put in the middle, because the second root letter or the middle root letter in ajwaf will be one of the weak root letters. Either we have waw as one of the weak root letters like qawala, and then it changes into qala. And today we will focus only on this, and inshallah tomorrow we will talk about ajwaf ya'i. So today we are talking about ajwaf wawi. And what does that mean? That means we have waw as the second root letter. Why do we call it ajwaf? We have discussed about this
Or
already.
empty.
Because it's empty in the middle, right? It's like ajwaf is the empty part of the mouth, and which is also called jawf. And we have the letters that are pronounced from jawf. And also the empty part of the stomach is also called ajwaf. So since they are empty from the middle, that's why they have been named ajwaf. And today, inshallah, we are going to talk about ajwaf wawi. So we have mutallul fa, which is mithal. We have already covered it. Then we have mutallul ayn, which is ajwaf, which we are going to discuss today, inshallah. Okay, now you might be thinking like this might be some extra information, or that it might be a little bit difficult information. But if we learn in detail from now, because our target is not only learning, but also learning and teaching. So both. So inshallah, once you have a strong base, then if you are reading any book of sarf or nahv, you will not be confused, at least when you come across these terms, because you will find them in all the books of sarf and nahv. And even the Sheikh has used in these books these terms. So we need to know them, that what is mu'tallul fa, which is mithal, and what is mu'tallul ayn, that is ajwaf. All right, so now we move on. Okay, in ajwaf, what is the difference between the root letters that do not have weak root letter and the verbs that have weak root letters? What is the difference between them? The ones that do
Sir,
not
with
have
weak letter, the verb will be defective.
Hollow and defective. This one is called
Hollow.
hollow. Yeah, this is hollow because
Hollow.
it's empty from the jawf, it's empty from inside, in the middle. And the defective will be the last one, inshallah. We will talk about that. Okay, when we say it's sahih or ghair sahih, so when we say sahih, that means the verb does not have any of the weak root letters. For example, we have nasara. Okay, then if there is no weak root letter, that means there will be no abnormality. No changes will take place. The train will go on straight on the track without making any changes. Okay, it will go straight away. But when we have the weak root letters, then what happens? There will be some changes as well. That's why we call them, mu'tal, or that's why we call that ta'lil, that we have to make some changes. Okay. Now we have learned the past tense of nasara. It's the same as dhahaba. Okay. Do you remember all the siyagh or all the forms of nasara? Do you remember all of them? 14. You know that every verb has 14 basic forms. For example,
Yes.
nasara. Yes.
Nasara.
Nasara.
Yansuru.
Okay.
Nasarat.
Nasarata.
Nasarna.
Nasarna. Excellent.
Nasartu.
Nasarta.
Nasarta, nasarti,
Nasartuma,
nasartuma, nasartunna.
Excellent.
Ana nasarna, nahanu nasarna.
Perfect. If you have, or if you are able to memorize one form of the verb, that means you are able to make tasrif, or you are able to make conjugation of
14.
all the verbs, 14 forms that do not have weak letters, like sahih or salim. So at least sahih and salim is clear now. So if I give you nasara, or I give you daraba, or I give you fataha, or I give you samia, or qatala, or whatever the verb is, you are able to make 14 forms of the verb, which is sahih. Okay, now look at the first change that has taken place here. We have nasara here, and here we have qaf, which is qa. Then we have the second root letter, we have sad, but here we have waw. So that means we have the second root letter is weak. And then the third one is ra, and here we have lam. So the third one is okay. So the first and the third are okay, but the second one is weak. Okay, so if we put it on the pattern of nasara, it will be qawala. Nasara, and it will be the same as qawala, right? Okay, now how and why it has changed into alif. All right, so that shouldn't be a problem. Inshallah, we can figure that out. Do you have any idea about like why it has changed or how it has changed into alif?
Because wow doesn't come in between two fathahs, sister.
La, okay, so let's see here.
Wow demands a dhamma behind, sir.
No. If it's a dhamma, you're right, but it will be qulu, right?
No, so the second letter is wow, which is have a fatha.
Okay, so let's see over here. First of all, the most important thing that we need to know that alif can never be a part of the root letters. Alif can never be a part of the root letters, okay? So that means whenever we see alif, whether we see it in the middle or we see in the end, that means it has been changed either by waw or by ya, or it has taken place of waw or ya, okay? Now, how will we know that it has taken place, whether ya is over there or waw is over there?
You have to change it into the present tense, Ustad.
Yes, when we look at the present tense, from looking at the present tense, we will be able to see that when it has become yaqulu, that means that there was a waw in the root letters of the past. So it was basically qawala and yaqulu, it has confirmed. Or our greatest and the biggest source is the Quran. When we are reciting the Quran, and when we see the verbs like that, we can easily figure out that there is waw or ya over there, or the teacher or the dictionary. These are the sources. However, today we will see that how this change takes place. First of all, like we have done with mithal, we are going to do the same thing. We need to know that most of the verbs of ajwaf come on the pattern of nasara yansuru. That's number one. This information is very, very important. If you remember that we had discussed that most of the verbs in mithal come on the pattern of daraba yadribu, if you remember that. But I don't want to confuse you, but you must, now this is the time for you to remember that which bab has the verbs on which pattern. So in mithal, most of the verbs were on the pattern of daraba yadribu. In ajwaf, most of the verbs will be on the pattern of nasara yansuru. They will be on the pattern of nasara yansuru. For example, we have here qawala, and it changes into qala and yaqulu. We haven't discussed like why it has become qala, but at least
Yeah,
one
I got
thing,
it, Ustad.
yeah, I
The
will
one is
explain it to you. Yes, we will talk about this.
Because the deleted this thing is fatha, so
Mahalan, 1 minute. Yes, we will talk about it. First, we need to know that which are the most common abwab that we have ajwaf on the pattern of. So most of them, they come on the pattern of nasara yansuru, which is qawala yaqulu. And some of the verbs in ajwaf come on the pattern of samia yasma'u. Some of them, they come on the pattern of samia yasma'u. For example, we have khawifa, and khawifa has changed into khafa and yakhafu. So there are two changes over here. Okay, don't think too much about it, inshallah, because we're going to discuss about it. So the only thing that you need to remember as of now.
Sir, any example of ya, sir? This is example
no. We are only discussing about verbs that have waw as the second root letter. Yes.
Okay.
We will go one by one, and inshallah slowly but surely, so that we don't have any room of confusion or anything that will make things difficult for us. So we have here waw, ajwaf, wawi. So nasara yansuru and samia yasma'u. These are the two things that you need to remember as of now. Now let's have a look how the change has taken place. When waw is mutaharrik, means carries a fatha. For example, waw has fatha or dhamma or kasra, and there is a fatha before it. And there is what before it? There is a fatha before it. Then it changes into alif. Again, when waw is mutaharrik, yani it has fatha or dhamma or kasra, and there is a fatha before it, then it changes into alif. How? See here. We have qa wa la. Wow. Wow is mutaharrik or sakin? Mutaharrik, yeah. Why? Because it has fatha on it.
Fatha.
Okay, what do we have before it?
Qaf with fatha.
Again, fa kalima with fatha.
Yeah, before this we have fatha, okay? So yeah, we have fatha over here. And the rule that we have discussed now, that before waw, when waw is mutaharrik and there is fatha before it, then it will be changed into alif. So it becomes qala. So from qawala, it becomes qala. Do you want me to repeat it again? When waw has fatha or dhamma or kasra, or when waw is mutaharrik, and before it there is fatha, then it will change into alif. So it becomes qala. So we should know that alif is not the root letter, waw is the root letter, but waw has changed into alif. And this is what we call ta'leel. Ta'leel means when we change the root letters, weak root letters with the other weak letters, that is called ta'leel. Then we have khawifa. Okay, wow here. Wow here it is it mutaharrik or sakin?
Khawifa, waw with mutaharrik.
Mutaharrik, okay. Yeah, and what do we have before it?
With
Fatha.
fatha.
Okay, so what is going to happen now? We will change this waw into alif, so it becomes, and then it becomes khafa. So from qawala it has become qala, and from khawifa it has become khafa. Very simple. I mean, there is no need to think a lot about it. It's very simple, the changes that have taken place. So the only thing that you need to remember, that waw has to be mutaharrik, and before this we have to have fatha. If two things are there, then waw will change into alif. Clear? Any questions?
No, Ustad, alhamdulillah. It's
Okay.
clear.
Okay, rule number 1 is clear, alhamdulillah. And rule number 2, you will inshallah come to know more about it when we discuss it in detail. But the only thing that we need to know that the 6th form of the verb. So the 6th form of the verb is the second track of the train. Do you remember the second track of the train? The train has 2 tracks. For example, it starts from nasara, nasara, nasaru, nasarat, nasarata. So the first 5 verbs, the first 5 verbs are one track of the train. And then from 6 up to 14, the track will change and it becomes nasarna. Yeah?
Sukun.
So sukun, yeah, so it changes that. So when the track of the train changes, that means that there will be changes in the verb forms as well. However, our destination is not going to change. The destination will be the same. So we have to reach our destination. That means the root letters will be the same. For example, nasara, the root letters will not change. However, some internal changes will take place. And when we reach the second track of the train, then it changes into nasarna. And from nasarna, khalas, the same track. Nasarna, nasarta, nasartuma, nasartum, nasarti, nasartuma, nasartunna, nasartu, and nasarna. So if you are able to, once again, if you are able to memorize one conjugation of the verb, that means you can make as many as you want based on that pattern. Okay, the only thing that we need to know here, that the 6th form of the verb changes. So if I explain it here, it will be a little bit difficult for you to relate it to. So what we will do now, we will go back to the other form that we have here, or the other PDF, or the other file that we have here, which is this one. So first of all, you should see here the thing that I was talking about. First of all, we will look at nasara. Nasara, nasara, nasaru. And now we carry on the conjugation of qala. It will be qala, qala, qalu. Right? Same nasara, nasara, nasaru, qala, qala, qalu. Then we have nasarat, nasarata, nasarna, and we have qalat, qalata, and qulna. Now, what happened over here?
The
Here,
second letter.
The vowel, the
Yeah, first of
ayn
all-
al-kalima had dropped.
first of all, what we need to see here, here we have four, letters, noon, sadra, and na. So we have four letters, but here we have three letters. So that means one letter has been dropped. That's number one. Number two, the other change that has taken place, we have fatha here, but here we have dhamma. So two changes have taken place. Now I will give you two choices. It's up to you, whatever choice you opt. Number one, you can take one verb. For example, you can take qala, you can take one verb, and you can memorize all the 14 forms of qala, and whatever verb you get on this form, you can put it in that, and you can do the conjugation. For example, if you know one verb like qala, qala, qalu, qalat, qalata, qulna, similarly you can take kana, kana, kanu, kanat, kanata, kunna, and you can memorize and you can do as many as you want. That's the easiest way. But number two, since we are learning and we have to know how and why this change has taken place, so we should also know, especially when you are teaching, and if you are being asked like why it has changed into qulna, then I believe that being a teacher or being a student, you must know about it, like why and how this change has taken place. Okay, let's go and see how and why this change has taken place. So the rule number one is clear. What was rule number one?
Something is better than
Rule, if wow is the root letter, the
Wow is mutaharrik and the letter preceding it has a fatha, then we
Excellent.
can replace it with
takes
alif.
alif.
Yeah, it will be replaced with alif. So when waw is mutaharrik and there is fatha before it, then it will change into alif. So from qawala, it has become qala. Okay, then if you remember here, the sixth form of the verb is nasarna. If you see here, nasarna is the sixth form of the verb. How? Nasara number one, nasara two, nasaru three, nasarat four, nasarata five, and nasarna is what? Number six, right? So when you go to the sixth form of the verb, then the second track of the train here. So the changes that will take place over here, you will enjoy it, inshallah. So first of all, we look at the base verbs of the base root letters. Okay, what are the base root letters? The base root
Qawala.
letters are qawala. Okay,
Qawala.
qawala. Okay, so what we will do here now, let's do conjugation from the base root letters without changing it into alif. And that's what you have to do. One time you have to do it, that you have to do the conjugation by writing the exact root letters without making this change number one. Don't make change number one. For example, here we have nasara. So instead of qala, we will put here qawala. Nasara, and here what we are going to put? We are going to put qawala, okay?
Qawala.
Qawala. So qawala, qawala, qawalu,
Qawalu.
qawalat,
Qawalat.
qawalata,
Qawalta.
qawalna.
Qawalna.
Qawalna. Okay, let's
Qawalna.
go. Yes, okay now.
Qawalna.
Okay, now let's go there and see here that we have the same thing here. We have qawalna, right? So nasarna has four letters, noon, shadra, and noon. And qawalna has also four letters, qaf, waw, lam, and noon. Okay, the first thing what we have to do here is, here we have to apply the rule number one. What is rule number one? That
Waw is
waw is mutaharrik, and
preceding
before
the
it is
distinct.
fatha, then it will change into
Changes
alif.
into alif.
So it has changed into alif. So it has become qa, and then lam and noon are over there, so it is qalna.
2 seconds.
Qalna, yeah, qalna is difficult to pronounce. It's not something that is easy to pronounce. Qalna, you know. So what Arabs did, and the reason is what we have to do, that in
Go
Arabic,
again to the base form.
in Arabic, two weak letters can never exist. because alif is always sakin. Please remember that alif is always sakin. If it is not sakin, it's not alif. Okay, so alif is sakin and lam is sakin. It is called iltiqa'u sakinain. You know this, iltiqa'u sakinain. So when two weak letters come together, then what we have to do, we have to drop
the weakest
weak
one.
letter, yeah. So when we drop the weak letter, it becomes qalna, right? For example, we drop the weak letter, it has become qalna, right? So now it is qalna, and how it has changed into qulna. Okay.
Because to
Please
indicate that
remember,
no has been dropped.
no. The other thing that I must tell you, inshallah, and that will be more like you are right, whatever you said, and we agree with that. But if the verb is on the pattern of nasara yansuru, if it is on the pattern of nasara yansuru, then we will put dhamma here. If it is nasara yansuru, we will put dhamma here. Otherwise, we will always put kasra here. So if the verb is on the like weight of or on the wazn of nasara yansuru, then what we will do, we will put dhamma. Otherwise, we will put kasra.
But how will we know, Ustad, whether it is on the weight of Nasra or not? Because there are so many patterns of verb, and if we are confused, like which wasn't it is there, how will we identify?
You will never be confused. And how I'm sure about it. That's number one. That whenever we are given a verb, we are always given as Madi and Mudari together. That's number one. And number two, the best source that we have is the Quran. So whenever you are reciting the Quran and you are reading the Quran, and whenever you find this form, you will straight away figure out that it is on the pattern of Nasara Yansuru. Why? Because here, the sixth one, it has Dhamma. And from 6 to 14, it is gonna carry Dhamma. Dhamma will be always there. For example, Qulna, and then, okay, let's continue. Qulna,
Qulta, qultuma, qultum, qulti, qultuma, qultuma, qultulna,
Kulna.
ana,
Qulna. So at least you have 7 verb forms, and from 7 verb forms, like from starting from Qulna up to Qulna, whenever you hear that it is on that pattern and it has Dhamma, you will straight away figure out that this is on the pattern of Nasara Yansuru. For example, if I say kuntu,
okay, whenever we see the Dhamma itself, we have to understand.
that's right. If I say kuntu, that means it's kana yakunu.
And it is the pattern wasn't of Nasra.
Nasara yansuru. So this thing, inshallah, this rule will.
There is no other verb which follows this pattern, Ustad?
No.
Okay.
Only the bab of Nasara yansuru follows these patterns. This pattern, the rest of the abwab, the rest of the 5 of them, they will always take kasra. So whenever you see kasra, that means it is not bab Nasara yansuru. And whenever you see dhamma, that means it is bab Nasara yansuru. Clear?
Okay. Say bi'na, then it will be like
Please don't go to that, because that is ya. We are not talking about ya. We are only talking about wow. Wow as the.
Give another example, Ustad, please.
For example, I give you the example of kana yakunu.
No, if it has to be in some other pattern, just give an example.
Yes, the pattern is that we have learned today is khafa yakhafu.
Zada also will come in this pattern, Ustad.
Zada has ya. Zada yazidu. That has the yeah. We are talking about the one that has waw only.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, today only we are focusing on wow. Okay. Now the sister has asked that she's asking that we should go about or talk about the verb that has the other one. For example, we have khafa. So we have khafa, khafa, khafu, khafat, khafata, khifna. It will be khifna. It will be what?
Khifna.
Khifna. But what I want you to, what I want you today is only to focus on the one that is on the pattern of qala yaqulu. That's the only thing that I want you to focus today. Inshallah, tomorrow we will take that has a different pattern, and after tomorrow we will slowly but surely. I don't want you to hurry up because I don't want you to be confused. So I will give you a few verbs that you have to practice today. our only job today is to focus on Bab Nasara Yansuru, and we have to memorize the conjugation of Bab Nasara Yansuru, and we have to memorize the conjugation of Qala Yaqulu for the past tense. Only for the past tense. All right, so what you have to memorize is Qala Qala Qalu, Qalat Qalata, Qulna, Qulta, Qultuma Qultum, Qulti, Qultuma Qultunna, Qultu, and Qulna. That's what you have to memorize. If you are able to memorize till tomorrow, inshallah, I will give you the other one, and then you will practice that. And if you are able to memorize 2 of them, that means you know everything about Ajwaf, because Ajwaf doesn't have a lot of rules. And please remember that we are today only targeting the past tense. We are not talking about the present tense. And the reason why I have put it over here is for you, so that you can practice like this. I will send you the past conjugation of Qala, and then I will send you a blank sheet, and you can take that blank sheet, and on that sheet, you can practice as many verbs as you want to. And now it's like the choice is yours. You can practice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as many as you want. So only 2 things that you have to remember. What are 2 things? Number 1, the first change, that when waw is mutaharrik and there is fatha before it, it changes into alif. That's number 1. And number 2, qawalna changes into qulna, and the reason is because it is on the pattern of, it's on the pattern of what?
Nasara.
Nasara Yansuru. Yeah. So if you can remember this one, and that will be inshallah more than enough for us. Any other thing that you want to ask? Everything is clear?
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, so why? Okay, so what are the 2 most common bab or abwab that are used for ajwaf? What are those? Yeah, I'm asking.
Khana,
I gave you
Ustad.
I gave you that it will, 2 of them are very common. It always comes on the pattern of 2 of them. One is Nasara Yansuru. And what is the other pattern? Do you remember?
Zahaba. Zahaba yazhabu.
La, I showed you today. So okay, today I want you to focus on Nasara Yansuru. Okay. And tomorrow we will talk about the second one, which is Sami'a Yasma'u. If you remember here, I will send the document to you as well, so that you can feel. Here I told you that the most common one, it is always on the pattern of Nasara Yansuru, and some verbs will be on the pattern of Sami'a Yasma'u. So most of them will be on the pattern of Nasara Yansuru, but some of them will be on the pattern of Sami'a Yasma'u. Okay, now rule number 2 should be easy for you to figure out, that the 6th form of the verb takes Dhamma in Bab Nasara Yansuru only. I have mentioned it clearly here, that the 6th form of the verb, and I'm going to delete this as well, so that you don't get
Ustad,
confused.
I
Yes.
have a doubt.
Mhm.
Ustad, that Samia is the most commonest you're telling in the Quran it occurs, is it?
Yeah, Nasara.
No, in Nasara is the first one and Samia is the second one.
Number 1 is Nasara. Number 2 is Daraba. Number 3 is
On
Samia.
what basis?
four is
On what
Fatha.
basis did you said Samia is the most commonest? I just want to know.
Nasara is the most common.
But you were asking for some. Who knows that? What was
the
the question for that?
grammarians? I mean, there have been many books that have been written on Sarf and Nahv, and whatever information I get, I always take this, inshallah, authentic information from the books. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, okay, the grammarians, they say that these 3, the ones that we have here, they say that Nasara, Daraba, and Samia, they are the main abwab. Why they are the main abwab? Because in Nasara and in Madi and Mudari, they are always different. For example, Nasara Yansuru, Daraba Yadribu, Samia Yasma'u. So the harakat of the past and the present are always different. So the grammarians, they say that these 3 are the primary or the important forms of the verb. And why they say this? They say because the past and the present is different. Can you see here? Here we have Nasara and here we have Yansuru. Here we have Daraba and here we have Yadribu. Here we have Samia and here we have Yasma'u. So the past and the present, the harakat are different.
Got it, Ustad. But what was the
Okay.
question you asked?
Okay,
where
now
for-
the next is
There was
Fataha.
Nasara.
1 minute, please. Fataha Yaftahu. Okay, what is the similarity here?
There's no change. The
Yes.
second,
Yeah.
this thing is the same thing.
Fataha Yaftahu. So you see here, the second root letter is the same, and
It
also
is
the
carrying
second
the
root is
same harakat as
Similarly, we
the
have the next one is Karuma Yakrumu, and then we have
Dhamma
Hasiba
and Dhamma.
Yahsibu. Yeah, and then the last one has Kasra and Kasra.
kasra. Okay.
Yeah, so this is what the grammarians, they said that the most commonly used is Nasara and then Daraba and Samia. That's why in the beginning of the lesson, if you remember, I told you that I didn't want to give you the reason, but you asked me that if you memorize it in this pattern means that these are the verbs that have been used or most commonly used. These patterns are the ones that are the most commonly used. So Nasara, then Daraba, then Samia, and then Fataha. Then we have Karuma, and then the last one is Hasiba Yahsibu. Those two we have not talked about yet.
Okay, got it, Ustad.
I hope you got it now. Yeah.
Perfect,
All right.
Ustad. Perfect.
And then some more homework which I have done for you. So here is the thing that we discussed today. So I will send you the PDF. It's up to you, whatever way you want to memorize it. For example, here, and these are the sheets which have been prepared by the Sheikh and his team. I haven't prepared these ones. I prepared the others that I showed you earlier. This is not from me. This is from Sheikh and his team. I mean, the one who wrote the books and his team. So they have prepared this beautiful, what is it? Diagram. Okay, thank you, Taha. So this one helps us to see, for example, as you can see here, number 1 here and number 1 here. So what is the meaning of number 1 here? Can you please tell me now? That Qawala has changed into Qala, right? That is change number 1. So if you're doing it by yourself, maybe you will not be able to figure out like what is meant by 1. That's why we always need a teacher or someone who can help us. And then number 2, they have given us the details here of number 2. It says that the change has taken place as I showed you today, and then it has become Qulna. Okay, now the reason that the Sheikh that they have given the reason, they have written here, for verbs in Bab Nasara, the kalimatun fa is changed to get a dhamma. For verbs not in Bab Nasara, the fa kalima is changed to get a kasra. Now you should be satisfied that the information that I gave you was, inshallah, it was authentic. And this is from the Sheikh and his team. So they have mentioned over here, Sheikh Abdul Rahim, the one who wrote these books, and they have their own team and they have prepared all of these slides and everything. So they have mentioned here that if the fa kalima, if it is Nasara, then the fa kalima changes into Dhamma, as I told you today. Otherwise, it will change into Kasra. And if you can sit and you can memorize like this, for example, this is past tense and changes into Mu'tal al-Ain, as it is called Ajwaf, and also it is called Mu'tal al-Ain, as I explained in the beginning of the lesson. So it becomes Qala, Qala, Qalu, Qalat, Qalata. The second track of the train is what? Qulna. And then the second track of the train takes you to the destination, and the destination is Qultu, which is the last destination, is Qulna, sorry. So from Qulna, it carries out all the way the same one, and it goes up to Qulna. So the difference is, here this is they said, those ladies said, and here it means we said. So we need to be very careful to differentiate that we don't prolong this one. We don't say it Qulna, and similarly, we don't make it shorter. We don't say Qulna. So this is 1 second, 1 haraka, Qulna, and this is 2 seconds, 2 harakat. We will say Qulna, Qulna, and Qulna, and the meaning will definitely change because of alif, yeah, which is al-mad, haruf al-mad. All right, any other questions? Clear now, inshallah? cannot hear anything. So,
Yes, Ustad. Alhamdulillah. Yes, Ustad.
okay, like this lesson, inshallah, this lesson is like really, it's long and it consists of lots of information. But before we reach that information, I want you to strengthen your basics and make sure that when we do the lesson, all of your concepts are clear so that when we make changes over there, you don't get confused. So from this lesson, there are only 4 things that you need to take away. And those 4 things are: number 1, the most common bab that Ajwaf carries is bab Nasara Yansuru. And then the second most common is bab Samia Yasmau. 2 things, okay? And then we have to see that 2 changes will take place. The first change will take place that the waw will change into alif. And why it changes into alif? Because waw is mutharrik and before that we have fatha. So from qawala it becomes qala. And then when we reach the 6th case or the 6th form of the verb, then from qawalna it changes into qulna. And it only changes into qulna when it is from bab nasara yansuru.
Nasr.
All right, any questions?
No,
Okay, is it enough or do you want me to give you some more information? That information is not about the weak verbs. About the weak verbs, I'm very meticulous and I will take you inshallah slowly but surely. I don't want to give you all the information in 1 lesson or 2 lessons. Okay, so one more thing which is very, very important to know is the use of or to know the verbs. I will give you a brief idea today, inshallah. And after this idea, you will always be able to figure out if the verb is transitive or intransitive. Have you heard about it? We have talked about the verbs that are transitive or
Lazim
intransitive.
and yes, Ustad.
Al-fi'lu lazimu wal-fi'lu al-muta'addiyu. Okay, al-fi'lu lazim means intransitive means it means direct flight. Yes, intransitive, that means direct flight. You don't need to take any transit and you reach your direct destination directly. That means that you don't need the object. You don't need a transit flight. So that's why it is called intransitive. And you don't need to connect it to any other country, right? So now we have 2 ideas. One is the track of the train. And now we have the idea of direct flight and indirect flight, right? So al-fi'lu lazimu, an intransitive verb does not require maf'ul bihi to complete the meaning of the verbal sentence. For example, dhahaba Hamidun, Hamid went. There is no need to bring in the object. And when we say dhahaba Hamidun, Hamid went, the meaning is clear. So that's why we say that this is al-fi'l lazim. Okay. Then we have the verb al-fi'l al-muta'addiyu, that is transitive verb. A transitive verb requires 1 or more maf'ul bihi to complete the meaning of the verbal sentence. And you have to stop at 1 destination before you reach your own destination. For example, from Saudi Arabia, I'm going to Pakistan. So I have to stop maybe in Dubai and then I have to go to Pakistan, okay? So that means I have to take a transit flight. So that's why we call it transitive verb, al-fi'l al-muta'addiyu. So sa'ala Hamidun Bilalan, Hamid asked Bilal. If we say sa'ala Hamidun, the meaning is not complete. Hamid asked what? Hamid asked who? Hamid asked what was he asking about? So we say Sa'ala Hamidun Bilalan. Hamid asked Bilal. Sawalan, we can say that Hamid asked Bilal a question, okay? Now, how do we see or how to figure out if the verb is intransitive or transitive? Look at here. We have a very important piece of information over here. Are you able to see my screen?
yes, Ustad.
The one that has fi'l lazim and fi'l mutaddi, right?
Yes, Ustad.
Okay, so ask these 2 questions. If you are able to answer these 2 questions, that means the verb is intransitive. One easy way to tell if a verb is transitive or intransitive is to ask if 1 or both of the following questions is meaningful for that verb. For example, what was the action performed on and who was the action performed on? Yani, who was the receiver of the action? Whether the receiver of the action was a thing or the receiver of the action was a person. So when we know that the receiver of the action of the was a thing or a person, that means that verb is mutaaddi or that verb is transitive. For example, we say shariba hamidun al-ma'a. So shariba hamidun al-ma'a. So the action has been performed on what?
Water.
On water. So the question will be, what was drunk? The answer is water was drunk. So that means the thing is here, the thing is over there. So that means it answers what was the action performed on. So the action was performed on al-ma. Similarly, we have Sami Hamidun al-adhana or Hamidun al-adhana. Hamid heard the call to prayer. So Sami Hamidun what? And the maf'ul bihi is al-adhana. Hamid listen to the adhan. So again here, the action has been performed on the thing that has been. For example, we say سأل الطالب المدرسة. سأل الطالب المدرسة. Okay, the student asked the teacher. So the action has been performed on the teacher. Yeah, mudarris. So, so if what was the action performed on and who was the action performed on? If you have the answer to these two questions, that means the verb is mutaaddi. And if you don't have the answer to these two questions, that means the fail is lazim. For example, Kharija Hamidan, do we have the receiver of the action? No. Jalasa Hamidan, do we have the receiver of the action? No. So that means this is al-lazim and this is al-fi'l al-lazimu. So inshallah from today, hopefully whenever you hear about al-fi'l al-lazim and whenever you hear about al-fi'l al-muta'addi, inshallah, based on these two questions, you will never ever forget. And please excuse me, like I want to tell the brothers or the sisters who know Urdu, it will be even easier for them to figure out. For example, if you have, when you translate the past, and you have the word ne, noon and ya, ne. For example, Bilal ne Hamid ko mara. So if we have ne, that means it is al-muta'addi, it is intransitive. If you don't have ne, that means it is al-fi'l al-lazim. For example, we say Hamid gya. Hamid gya. Do we have ne over there? We don't have, right? So we say dhahaba hamidun. And similarly, muta'addi means to receive something, to receive. So from the meaning, it is clear that we have to have the receiver over there who is receiving the action. So we have two, al-fi'l al-lazimu wal al-fi'l al-muta'addi. Clear?
Yes, Ustad.
Any questions?
No, Ustad.
Okay. So alhamdulillah, we have covered a lot of new things and hopefully for you as well. And lots of things that we have been talking about for a long period of time. And now, inshallah, I'm sure that they're clear. Now it's up to you. The more you practice, the more you will be confident and the more you will be able to learn. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Walaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام. طيب.